Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Sara Mehle, index research strategist at Nasdaq Global Indexes, to discuss Nasdaq 100 year-to-date performance driven by tech and consumer discretionary. Sara, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks, and walk us through this performance that we've seen. I mean, it's pretty glaring how much it's outperformed.
Hey, Jill, great to be here. Thanks for having me on this Friday. First off, to start today, even with the small cap rally that we've seen take place this week, the Nasdaq 100 index is up about half a percentage point in today's session. And as of this recording, at 3 p.m. Eastern time, we're in positive territory for the week. So if this holds through today's close in the next hour, well, this will mark the 7th consecutive week of gains for the Nasdaq 100 index, which we haven't seen happen since mid-2021. So about 2 years ago, which we know a lot has happened between now and then. We've seen this reflected on some of the technical charts that we track as well, which we'll get into. But first, I just wanted to go over kind of some high-level stats around the Nasdaq 100 index in terms of performance. So year-to-date, through yesterday's close, up about 32%. And we're outperforming the S&P 500 index by over 20%. That is quite a margin to see. And I wanted to dig a little deeper to see, what really was the difference there. And, we know that the S&P 500 has 500 stocks, Nasdaq 100 about 100. So there is, some concentration there in those innovation-driven names. But really, it's been technology and consumer discretionary that have been those drivers of outperformance. Technology, which accounts for 58% of the Nasdaq 100 index, has contributed about 25% of the year-to-date returns, 15% more than when compared to the S&P 500 index. Consumer discretionary has added 7% for the Nasdaq 100, so about 4% more than the S&P 500. And that 0% financial exposure by design has benefited the Nasdaq 100 slightly, but really it's a margin of about 3 basis points that we've seen in terms of that outperformance that it has given. So really, it has been that tech and consumer-driven, growth-driven market. The only areas where the S&P 500 kind of has a leg up in terms of performance is in basic materials, real estate, and industrials, but again, very minimal. And the top drivers of the Nasdaq 100 in terms of individual stocks this year, NVIDIA is the top stock, not surprising. We've seen it add 5.4% to the Nasdaq 100. It is one of the top 3 contributing stocks to the S&P 500 as well, but it has only added 1.8%, and that is because it has a smaller allocation. The second top contributing name is Apple for the Nasdaq 100, Microsoft, and then Meta. And again, funny enough, it really is those top 3 names are also the top 3 contributing names to the S&P 500, but it really is that weighting and concentration difference that we see in the 2 different methodologies. So again, we have seen this reflected in some of the charts, which I'm excited to go over.
Let's take a look at your point and figure trend chart. What is it saying in terms of follow through and demand?
This is the long-term point and figure chart of the Nasdaq 100. So this is just charting day-to-day prices. So it's a logical, organized way to track daily price movement of a security. So we can see that the trend here really is up. You can see that it's trading above that red dotted line. That is the bullish support line. We've seen this chart give 4 consecutive buy signals. And today, the chart actually reversed up into X's, which it's hard to tell on this particular chart, but it's highlighted in blue, that last column of X's. So from here, we're 1 box away from a potential 5th consecutive buy signal, which we have not seen since 2020. Again, going back, I feel like so many years, but really these consecutive buy signals are really just showing us follow through, that demand is in control. If we were to see the chart kind of go back and forth, up and down, not really have a trend, we just know that those are, there's not really some consecutive or really leadership in terms of just overall price movement. But seeing these consecutive buy signals, seeing this positive trend, we're well above the positive trend. I feel like for so long we were talking about, we might move into a positive trend, or we're close to giving a 2nd consecutive buy signal. So I think the picture is very different from the one we touched on 4 or 5 months ago in the beginning of the year. And we now are approximately 15% from the all-time high that the Nasdaq 100 hit in November of 2021. So with this recent price movement and this recent rally, we are seeing the trading band a little bit extended. So we are about 101% overbought based on a 10-week trading band. But just because something is overbought doesn't mean that it won't necessarily move higher, and it doesn't mean that it will have to pull back. Those trading bands do adjust over time. So overall, I think that just the trend chart picture, just looking at the Nasdaq 100 index itself, is looking really attractive these days.
And finally, let's wrap it up and talk about relative strength.
So again, looking at that performance, we mentioned the Nasdaq 100 versus the S&P 500, that 20% dispersion so far this year. Well, we can take a step back and we can look at this from a very objective point of view using point and figure and relative strength. And anywhere that this particular chart on the screen, again, can't really see up close, but that highlighted green just tells us that over those particular years, that is where the Nasdaq 100 has shown long-term outperformance or long-term strength relative to the S&P 500. So if you had to pick one versus the other, the odds are more stacked in your favor to go with the Nasdaq 100 index. Again, if you only had two choices. And that particular buy signal has maintained since 2002. So that has been, quite some time. But when we zoom in closer, we can see that although it's maintained that relative strength buy signal, we have seen the columns fluctuate back and forth over time, telling us that we have seen periods where the S&P 500 has been relatively stronger in a very near-term perspective. And so we did see this chart reverse back up into a column of X's, telling us the Nasdaq 100 is now the longer term winner and near term winner in terms of relative strength. We saw that reverse up in March of 2023. So overall, again, we have seen that 32% performance so far this year for the Nasdaq 100. That is a price return basis, so not including dividends or total return. And outpacing the S&P 500, I think overall the technical outlook right now is a healthy one, and I think it's important to check up on every once in a while. So, almost midway through the year, so this is our, almost halfway through the year little checkup.
All right, appreciate the insight as always, Sarah. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.